Hello, I'm Todd Hall, President and CEO of TruLiant. As we mark our 70th anniversary in 2022, we reflect on a rich history that would not be possible without the support of the great city of Winston-Salem. From our humble beginnings in 1952 to the present, where we will soon serve over 300,000 members, hire our 1,000th employee, and exceed $4 billion in assets, to a future poised for continued growth. I am proud of the work we are doing together. TruLiant is grateful for and remains committed to Winston-Salem and all of Forsyth County.
Welcome to the Greater Conversations podcast. I'm Deetra Miller, the Director of Member Relations and Engagement at Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. We'll use this platform to showcase our local businesses, our community, and their stories. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm super excited to have a couple of people here with me today from an organization, a nonprofit that some of you may not have heard of, that you're going to get to learn more about today. It's really exciting. So I have here with me today Lauren Tudor, the Executive Director of the North Carolina Employee Ownership Center, and Luke Hoffman, who's the Regional Director of the North Carolina Employee Ownership Center. And we'll probably truncate that a little bit down to the NCEOC. But I just am so excited for people to learn more about this because I didn't know this existed until I met Luke about a year ago. So Lauren, I'm going to start with you. Okay. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what the North Carolina Employee Ownership Center is.
Happy to do that. I'm Lauren Tudor. I'm the Executive Director of the North Carolina Employee Ownership Center, affectionately known as NCEOC, and we are an education-based nonprofit dedicated to promoting employee ownership throughout the state. I'm truly honored to be here and excited to have the opportunity to be here with you today. We're a leading organization in the state and the country, I'm proud to say, in being dedicated to the movement toward promoting employee ownership as a pathway to shared prosperity and strong local economies in North Carolina.
I love that. I love that. Luke, tell us a little bit about you and what you do with the NCEOC.
So I'm the Regional Director of NCEOC. I'm based here in Winston-Salem. So when I started with NCEOC, I was the Triad Program Manager, focusing primarily on Forsyth County. And then kind of as my role has expanded within the organization, I'm now involved in sort of all of our regional programs throughout the state, as well as a number of other things that we do as an organization with events, trainings, marketing, all sorts of different things. Another big piece of what we do is talk about succession planning. So we're kind of at the beginning of what some people are calling the small business closure crisis, or kind of like the silver tsunami. And so basically what that means is that there's all of these aging business owners who are, kind of the baby boomer business owner, maybe age 55 plus or so, who are nearing retirement age. And many of them don't have a succession plan in place. And we know from research that a lot of businesses that are put up for sale never actually sell. And so if these businesses were to close down, those jobs would be lost. And so we want to make sure that business owners are thinking about succession planning, and that when they're thinking about kind of their options for succession planning, that they know that employee ownership is one of those options that's out there. And so we know employee ownership isn't going to be the perfect fit for every business, but a lot of people just don't know that it's an option that's out there, where the selling owner can get fair market value for their business, the employees have the opportunity to build wealth, and in the community, those jobs stay rooted in the community, and that business stays open long term. So that's kind of a lot of how we think about employee ownership, is kind of through this succession planning lens.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. In regard to the businesses that would actually qualify for something like this, talk about what that looks like.
So really there isn't any specific industry or size business that is necessary or required for being employee owned. There are three main forms of employee ownership that we focus on. So the first one is an employee stock ownership plan. That's the most common form of employee ownership both in the U.S. and in North Carolina. The next most common one that we focus on are worker cooperatives. And then the final one is an employee ownership trust, which is a form of employee ownership that's been more common in the UK, And then in the last few years has kind of been brought to the U.S. And been expanding really rapidly in the U.S. And currently there's only one employee-owned trust in North Carolina, but that model offers a lot of flexibility from kind of a legal and financial perspective. And so there's been a lot of kind of interest in that model of employee ownership. But I guess all that to say is that depending on the size of the business, how many employees there are, the financials of the business, one of those different forms might be a good fit. And so really, as long as the company is already profitable and has good cash flow, then it can finance some type of conversion to one of these forms of employee ownership.
When you talk about succession, what's a good time frame for an owner to start considering this and implementing a plan?
I would say as early as possible. I think it's just good business strategy to have a succession plan. Something we will touch on sometimes in presentations is that succession planning or an exit strategy isn't always about retirement. There may be other reasons that somebody would want or need to leave a business. And so I think having a succession plan kind of always, regardless of the age of the owner, is kind of just like a good best practice. And some of these conversions, to employee ownership, or whether it's just, an outside sale to a buyer, they can get pretty complicated sometimes. And so I think what happens is that a lot of times we'll talk to owners who are like, I'm 70. I want to be at the beach. I want to retire tomorrow, And it's like, we can help them and try and make that a quick and smooth process for them. But had they started that process 5 or 10 years earlier, it would have been a much smoother transition. So I think just as early as possible is great.
Right. We often meet folks who are at the beginning of their entrepreneurial endeavors who sometimes want to keep employee ownership as a model in mind throughout the life cycle of that venture. And as Luke mentioned, there are many reasons why people might want to make an exit plan out of the business. Sometimes it's retirement. Sometimes it's a little scarier, things like divorce or death or distress. There are many reasons why an owner would want to sell their business, and we are there to help walk them and steward them through the journey.
What does it look like for the employees of the company? How does ownership work for them? How do they get involved in that?
Yeah, it looks like quite a few things. The main thing is that they have autonomy and ownership over the destiny of their economic futures, really. We walk the owner through the process of what conversion would look like for the employees. They have more stake in the game. They get to participate in the decision-making process for that business. And folks who are more invested in their role outside of clocking in 9 to 5 tend to walk away from that scenario well off, and especially with growing their personal net worth and their assets, especially if that business gets sold to one of them, they potentially stand to gain a lot of economic power from being invested at this level through employee ownership.
How is employee ownership different from, let's say, participating in buying stock in a company?
Well, it's a little bit more active outright. Again, the employee is at the decision-making table. They get to set the chart and trajectory for how the business operates. They get to lean into revenue-generating activities. They get to profit from those activities. They get to say and forecast out what might be economically vital for the business to make it another 5 years, another 10 years. There's just more people in the room who can lend more brain power to how the business operates in general. Do you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, I guess one thing just on the different forms of employee ownership. So for a worker cooperative, for example, the employees themselves would be buying in to have a share of ownership in the company. But for an employee stock ownership plan, employees themselves aren't fronting any cash to buy stock or to buy ownership in the company, and that ownership is gifted to employees. And so I think that's a big difference where a lot of employees who, aren't upper level management, they're sort of your, rank and file type employee. They might not have the extra cash laying around to go and buy stock in a company, even if it's the one that they work for. Where with an employee stock ownership plan, that equity in the company is gifted to them. And so that's a benefit that they aren't having to pay for out of their own pocket.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that is pretty awesome. Share with me and the audience one of your favorite success stories of late.
One that I really like is Salem Fabrication Technologies Group. They're in Clemens. And so they have been in ESOP now, I think, for around 20 or so years. But
wow.
I think they're a really great success story. And I really like highlighting them for a number of reasons. One, if I'm talking to people in Forsyth County, they're a company that's based in Forsyth County and is 100% employee owned. Also, I think they're in the manufacturing industry, and they create and service the machinery that cuts glass for things like bathrooms. And the reason I like bringing up them as a company is I think sometimes when people think of employee ownership and worker cooperatives, there's sort of this association with organic grocery stores and these sort of high-end consumer goods. And it's sort of this, progressive, elitist way of doing business.
Okay.
And that really isn't the case with employee ownership, kind of looking at it broadly across the United States and in North Carolina. And so, they are a rural manufacturing company. And so they're very much not the, organic grocery store type of business. And so I think they're just a great example of a company that is employee owned and is in Forsyth County, is in manufacturing, which is kind of a popular industry for ESOPs. I think they're just a great example and have done a really good job of engaging employees kind of in the decision-making process and doing things like open book management to keep employees really involved.
Ooh, that sounds interesting. What is that exactly?
So open book management is just a type of financial transparency between the people who would traditionally be managing the finances of the company and the rest of the employees. So I'm not sure if it's weekly or biweekly or how often it is, but they'll take a look at the business's profit and loss statement and things like that, so that employees know, how are we doing as a company? Are our sales up? Are they down? Are we doing really well financially? Are we losing money? And so I think that's just a way for the management and the owners to be on the same page as all of the employees, and for everybody to kind of be on the same team working together for this goal of the success of the business, versus employees just showing up, clocking in, doing their thing, and leaving.
The total transparency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. For a company that's interested in starting an employee ownership opportunity, how do they do that?
Yeah, they would connect with us through our info account or just visit our website at www.nceoc.org, and we will walk them through an exploratory call where we kind of glean what's going on with them, get an insight into the business, their structure, very specific questions about how they were incorporated, how many employees they have, light financial information, just general bottom line revenue, expenses, and what their hopes and dreams are for conversion might be. And often we hear a variety of stories of people kind of saying certain elements that might ladder up to ESOPs or that might ladder up to a worker co-op. And so we're able to better position them after that on this stewardship journey that would connect them to a feasibility landscape. All right, so we're going to pair you with this particular financial entity, this particular legal entity, and they would really get hands-on guidance for what conversion option would work best for them.
I love that. What have you seen over your tenure? So you've been with NCEOC for how long now, Luke?
A little over a year.
And you've been with NCEOC for how long?
4 months.
For 4 months. Congratulations,
Thank you.
Executive Director.
Thank you.
So in looking, whenever you came on board, I'm sure they shared some statistics with you. What has it looked like for North Carolina in regard to growth and for people discovering that this is an option for their business?
We definitely want to play the central hub of information and education and just being a really great resource for owners and employees around the state. We think giving workers a piece of the $165 billion pie is certainly something to ladder up to, and particularly focus it deeply on racial equity, as well as covering income wealth gaps in ways that count. We want to set up owners and employees with the measures they need through strategic partnerships to be set up for success. Employee ownership is one of the few solutions that creates really strong economies and actual living wages for folks. So whether we're talking about personal possessions or the companies we work for, we know for one thing is for certain, and that is ownership matters. We often ask folks who are coming in through the inquiry process, what do you want your legacy to be? And then we walk them through a journey that would help set them up for success and social good.
I love that. I love that. I'm thinking about some of the jobs that I had as a young person, because when I think of employee ownership, I really think about...
Right? You were a young person last week?
Yes.
Weren't we all?
Yeah. I was so much older then. I'm younger than that now.
Yeah. Well, when I think about teenagers that may be interested in possibly exploring, let's say, a community college, and maybe they're working for a small business in town, employee ownership seems like that opportunity to grow wealth in a different kind of way that is so amazing. I mean, I'm really enjoying learning more about the opportunity, and I love that you guys are doing this. And you've been around again for 20 years in North Carolina?
No. We're a newer nonprofit.
Okay.
The concept itself is as old as time.
Okay.
Employee ownership has been around for a really, really long time. But the nonprofit itself has only been founded since 2019. Happy to go into the founding story if you like.
Yes, please.
The North Carolina Employee Ownership Center was born out of a collective vision to empower workers and promote sustainable business practices within the state, because we recognize the power and the potential of employee ownership right here in North Carolina, not only to enhance individual and financial security, but to foster community well-being. And a group of dedicated individuals came together, and organizations of the like, to establish NCEOC. Our parent company, for lack of a better term, was the Employee Ownership Network, and we still have very close connections with them to this day. In fact, the ED over there serves on our board.
Nice.
But yeah, it all began with a shared belief in the transformative power of EO models through ESOPs or worker co-ops and et cetera. And these models empower employees by giving them a stake in the company's success. And so what that does is it creates a sense of ownership and autonomy, and it aligns your personal interests with the company's long-term goals. We really like to think that we are working at the intersection of community prosperity and economic vitality. And so what that can do for young people who are thinking about this concept in the ethereal sense is that there's a real incentive for companies who are of the future and forward thinking for them to start to attract top talent who are also thinking through that lens.
I love that.
Who also want to align themselves to shared prosperity and community vitality and the longevity of their communities by having something that has been a staple here, having had these values for eons and decades. The founders of NCEOC, we try to bridge the gap between business interests and transitioning up to ownership, with providing them with the resources they need to make that transition successful.
I love that. For everyone listening that may be like an organization that could partner with you because you are a nonprofit, so
Yes.
surely donations are a good thing.
Absolutely.
Or for businesses that are listening today that want to know more again, share the best way for them to get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get in touch with us online at www.nceoc.org, or you can reach out to Luke or myself. We're a small shop, but we're a mighty one. And we work hard to set up strategic partnerships and collaborative efforts to foster even deeper economic stability and community growth. So we can happily attach our emails to this podcast as well. They're very easy to find us online. We are always looking to collect folks inside of our ecosystem because we think employee ownership as a model is incredible.
Awesome. Is there anything that we didn't touch on today that the two of you would like to share with everyone listening?
Well, we are having an event. And we're having a party, actually.
We like parties.
Yeah, who doesn't like a party? And it's actually really for our partners and recently converted companies. And it's a really big chance for the community to come out and learn deeper about what employee ownership actually is. And so we have our signature event every October because October is Employee Ownership Month.
Okay.
And October 25th, right here in Winston-Salem at Footnote Cocktails and Coffee.
Ooh, we're fans of Footnote.
Yeah, they have a really cool space. We are going to host an event that celebrates succession planning and legacy and businesses that have converted in some form of EO succession planning. So you can expect to hear inspiring stories from businesses who have transitioned. You can expect to network with other people in the industry. Really tasty food and drinks. Really tasty. And you can expect to have an impactful experience contributing to the growth and empowerment of local businesses that directly shape the future of our community.
That sounds fun. Do folks need to sign up to register?
Yes.
How does that work?
Yes. So we have an Eventbrite link through our website. Very easy to find. Just hover over events, and then we're right there at the top. And it's called a celebration. Ownership Matters, a celebration of employee ownership. Really easy to find. And we hope to have you there.
I look forward to being there. I was invited by Luke to an event last year that you guys have. Was it the same event? Oh, that was so much fun. So many cool people were in the room. So,
and I would be remiss if I didn't say this is free. We're a nonprofit and we like to do cool things. So no cost to you. Just come on by.
Sounds good. Lauren, Luke, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I really loved learning more about NCEOC, and I'm looking forward to the event in October. Tim, you going with me?
Quite possibly.
All right. Well, for everyone listening, until next time. We know you enjoyed this podcast today, so join us for the next episode of Greater Conversations. By the way, you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Be sure to smash that subscribe button. Also, be sure to visit our website at winstonsalem.com. The views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and not necessarily those of our sponsors, distributors, or hosting companies. This podcast is copyrighted and cannot be reproduced without expressed written consent of Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. or your toast.